So the trade yesterday ended up being an absolute banger. As we approached the news hour, we ended up getting a CISD. The moment that happened, you just place a limit, set your stop, and target it for, not in yesterday's case, it was 4R. But even if you missed that initial entry, you still had another order block where you would have had a solid half an hour to get in before the TP was hit. Everything was posted live on Twitter. And if you guys want to follow along with just live execution after watching these videos, feel free to just follow me on Twitter. But otherwise, that puts us at 2 out of 2 for the year. With last year, we officially had about 130 wins out of 165 wins. Sorry, 165 trades called, which puts us at a solid, 78 to maybe 75% win rate. And yeah, going to try to look to replicate the success heading into this year. And what better way to do it than to start things off with today's kind of intraday trade. And just a heads up, there's not going to be much editing in this video. Our editor is currently out walking around. We're currently on a team retreat, so they're just taking a day to just kind of walk around. And tomorrow we're all going to go home and we're going to go full force back into, producing these videos. But otherwise, yesterday we closed bullish. And so today the daily bias is going to be bullish. The only thing to keep in mind is that this previous high on the daily here has already been taken. Is that going to stop us from going for a long? Nope. Because as long as the daily bias is still bullish, as long as the market trend continues to show you that it's bullish, you continue to trade with the trend. It's very meaningless to kind of assume, oh, just because price is high means that it's going to retrace. How many people, in fact, think back to yourself, right? How many times have you done that just to end up getting burned? It's the same concept as not buying into a dip just because you see that the price is going down. In fact, that's arguably one of the worst times where you should be buying, or rather putting in a long, because, well, at that very instance, the market's showing you bearishness, and you don't necessarily want to be buying into a market that's dropping. Similarly, you don't want to be selling in a market where things are going up. Speaking about going up, if you take a look at the daily chart, over here you have a CISD confirmed on the daily chart, which means that right now, as for the foreseeable future, we're going to be looking for more bullishness. Now, of course, it goes without saying that if you kind of zoom in to these daily candles here, you have quite a few order blocks you have quite a few fair value gaps that you can take advantage of, which means that in the event that you retrace into either one of these fair value gaps, what is going to be ultimately just a retracement before you can take an opportunity to take things towards the long side. Now, before I start working on the 1 hourly chart, it's important to know that there is no going to be news today. As you can see, Tuesday, today, we have absolutely zero news. Tomorrow, Thursday and Friday, we do have multiple pieces of news, which means that in terms of the probability, right, if you're able to not trade today, it'd be fantastic, because Wednesday, Thursday, Friday are probably going to be a lot higher probability, in the sense that what we are trying to look for is much more likely to happen on those days. I'm not saying that today is impossible to trade. I'm just saying, like, we approach today with the mentality that, all right, it's going to be slightly lower probability. So we approach this in two ways. First one is that we look for more confirmations before we jump into the trade, because we know, all right, today's going to be a day when we're likely to potentially get chopped out or maybe get manipulated out. So we want to be careful. Second way is to, instead of aiming for some sort of really stupid target that is really far away, we take our profit at 2R, 3R and just call it a day. Actually, a third way is to just take half risk in whatever trade that you're taking, right? Now that that's out of the way, let's remove everything. And in fact, we don't really have to remove it, because price right now is just kind of retracing back into this order block right here. And as you can see, price is already retraced into it and currently is showing signs that it's going to the upside. And outside of that, I don't think there are any other PDRAs that we are taking, or rather to take note of, outside of this fair value gap over here. So either way, price has already filled the fair value gap and currently looks like it's heading towards the upside. Now, the ultimate kind of form of confirmation by the time that you watch this video is that if you get a hourly close above this level right here at 93,750, there's going to be a bullish CISD on the 1 hourly chart as well. Although that is not absolutely necessary, because if you take a look at the hourly order flow, you are very much already bullish. And as long as you're in bullish order flow, that is all we need on the 1 hourly chart, with the exception of filling in some sort of PDRA. So in terms of the hourly chart, let's just say that most of the conditions are already fulfilled. Now, in the event that you get an hourly close above this level, you're just going to get an extra bit of confirmation, which again is kind of like what we're trying to look for today, where we do not have news. Because at the moment, you could still make kind of an argument that price is currently retracing into this bearish order block to form a lower low. Now, whether or not that stands to happen is, we'll be able to tell with time. Unfortunately, I'm not able to predict the markets, even though it seems like I have a really good accuracy rate. Funny thing is, I'm not necessarily trying to predict the markets, right? The advice that I always give you is that as a trader, it's not necessarily your job. In fact, it is not your job to try to predict the markets. It's more about mapping out some high probability scenarios for the day, and whatever happens at that specific timing zone, which in our case is between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m. New York, because that's the New York kill zone, whatever scenario happens, you just take that one. So in a way, trading is a game of reading and reacting, not necessarily predicting, as most beginners would like to assume. Now, in terms of the 5-minute chart, we can see that the Asia low has already been swept out, which means this is potentially going to be another textbook accumulation, manipulation, followed by a distribution during the New York session, very much like yesterday. If you take a look at yesterday, the exact words that I said was that, okay, the Asia low has already been swept out. London, you manipulated into an hourly PD array, and then New York's going to be distribution. This is a textbook AMD setup, and look at how it played out. The only difference between yesterday and today is the fact that yesterday we have news, and you can see when most of the volatility for the day kind of pops up, and that is during the news window. Now, in terms of today, they don't have news, but we can reasonably expect something similar to happen. And if it doesn't, then, well, it's just going to end up being a no trade. So when I say if it doesn't happen, again, ideal condition is that this hourly level gets closed above. But if it doesn't, as you get into the New York kill zone between 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., all you're going to want to look for is that order flow on the 5-minute is still bullish, kind of like what it is at the moment. Now, just because order flow is bullish right now doesn't mean that we jump in now though, because right now it's 5:50 a.m. New York, which is kind of that dead zone in between the end of the London kill zone and the start of the New York kill zone, where things could be a bit choppy or manipulative, let's put it that way. And as long as you get into the New York kill zone, and as long as you are showing bullish order flow, then that is when you can start taking a trade. And as usual, I will be posting any of the live trades or entries if I'm on the chart. I'll be posting on X, so feel free to follow me there and just turn on the notifications. But otherwise, in terms of the lower time frame, yeah, if there is no CSD, if price just ends up showing bearish order flow all throughout, then yeah, it's just going to be a no trade. And unfortunately, it's very normal, especially on a day where you don't necessarily have news. Now that Bitcoin's over, let's go and take a look at Ethereum. So far, you have a bullish daily bias in terms of the hourly. You are also already in some sort of bullish order flow. The only difference is that it's looking slightly different compared to Bitcoin, because in terms of Ethereum, you have a couple of relatively equal lows here, and the order block is actually all the way back now here. So in terms of Ethereum, it's not necessarily looking bearish. So I think it's going to be just the exact same setup, where I would actually prioritize Bitcoin over Ethereum today, just because you have relatively equal lows. If there's a chance that even though right now you already have bullish order flow, there is a chance where you might just sweep out the lows before price takes off. If you see that happening, great, amazing, feel free to take it. But at the very moment, based on what I can see at least, Bitcoin is just a touch more higher probability compared to Bitcoin. Now let's take a look at Solana. We have a bullish daily bias. In terms of the hourly, it is also very similar to Bitcoin. In this case, you also have a couple of relatively equal lows here, which means that two scenarios are present. One is that you either sweep out these lows and then you get that CISD towards the upside, or you just start pumping straight away. Both are likely to happen. I don't know which one, but both of them are going towards the long side. So that's all you kind of pay attention to. But otherwise, I think that's about it. Guys, thanks for watching the video, and thank you yesterday for shooting us up to 30,000 subscribers. This is a magical feeling, because I think for a solid 2 years, this channel had been stuck on a 25, 27K for a solid 2 years. And last year was the first year where we started growing, and I wouldn't be able to do this without all of you who show up every day to provide the support, as well as really appreciate you guys. And I'll see you guys later on Twitter, and tomorrow. Might not be able to make a video tomorrow, actually, now that I think about it, because we'll be traveling back to Malaysia. So if I don't end up posting a video, just understand that I'm going to be on a flight. But otherwise,